Well, folks, I couldn't think of a better way to spend my Thursday afternoon than talking about Star Wars, baby. Yes, the Wars in the Stars. Okay. So, um, I want to talk about a few things about Star Wars. First and foremost, I do see a lot of people, especially on Twitter, Reddit, the places where good conversations are happening, you know? And I noticed a trend. I mean, I guess it's not so much a trend as it is like always been a thing, but like the people who just cannot ever fathom Lucasfilm making a good Star Wars film, like at all, is kind of concerning because, like, as a Star Wars fan, I have been always on the forefront of let's make more Star Wars. And I I think Star Wars has um, elevated itself where it's beyond nostalgia. And I felt like that was the problem with Force Awakens, you know? By the way, it is sweltering. And I have AC and I have a fan jacked up and I'm sweating. So if you can hear a fan in the AC, I'm sorry. If I don't have it on, I will pass out in the middle of the episode. It's not going to be good. So I noticed that a lot of people, saying that like there's just no hope for like any of the Star Wars films. And I just have to politely disagree. You know, um and before you say, well, Mandalorian doesn't count, well, also let me explain. Um I think the best thing for Star Wars right now is to understand its own source material because that was a problem with the sequel trilogy where there was no, I don't know, there's no one who would at least like be the story editor or like the arbiter of, the Star Wars lore and what's supposed to happen in the sequel trilogy. Because granted, like the story, it gets you can only do so much when the actors are the way they are. The legacy characters like Han Solo, Harrison Ford, all the way to Carrie Fisher as Leia and Hamill as Skywalker. Like it was a tough uphill battle to climb, and one that I, even as an aspiring filmmaker, would not want to tread, just because of the fact that like there's a lot going on. But that doesn't mean that I lose hope on it because, like everyone else, watching the OG trilogy for the first time, and I remember my first time, the first of the trilogy, I actually started off with Empire. My sister is a huge Star Wars fan, so when Empire, like I remembered, it was gonna come on TV, and it like they were playing commercials for or was it like news or something? I think it was like commercials when episode 1 it was gonna come out for Phantom Menace. And I always like I just never really had an interest, and I was like I was 6 at the time. Yeah, I was 6 at the time, and there was it played a major pivotal role in the development of my childhood because it was the first time that I was exposed to what storytelling meant. And I didn't know what the fuck I was watching at the time, but I was mesmerized. And I connected with it even on a level that I couldn't understand. I did connect with it just by way of like, the character choices and the dilemmas that they go through and whatnot, and to never lose hope on each other, even when things are just backed up against a wall, and there's no way of going about it. Sometimes you just have to fly that fucking X-wing into the crevice of the Death Star and just lay them fucking bombs, dude. You know what I mean? Just fuck them up. And that's what I love. That's the kind of stories from Star Wars that I appreciate the most. And with Empire, it was something that meant the world to me, as I'd assume all Star Wars fans have. It was the quintessential classic, you know? And to get to that point again is never going to happen. I don't want to I don't want to be depressing, fucking, David Attenborough style. It's like nothing will ever be the same again. No, I mean, it's just, you're not going to recreate Empire Strikes Back. You can get close. You can get very close. And I think the way that George Lucas made Star Wars is kind of set up for success. It's evergreen. The Star Wars universe in of itself is evergreen. Just like Star Trek. Like Gene Roddenberry, I'm sure, has created Star Trek not because he just wanted to have an excuse to work with William Shatner. I don't know much about Star Trek, so maybe, I don't know. But I'd assume that he just had a vision of a sci-fi show that he always wanted to see, or a sci-fi narrative, I should say, that he always wanted to see. And he wanted it on screen. Like, he wanted it to come to life and whatnot. And it was one of the first shows that had depth and meaning to people and whatnot. And it's that same stroke of genius with George Lucas and Star Wars. Because, to put it simply, it's a story about hope that is universally found all over the universe. And it might sound as like, well, okay, not every story can be like that, like your Rogue Ones and stuff, but I'd venture to disagree, because most stories that inspire even people like me who, with my love of films, growing up was very difficult. Making movie references to people, like girls I like, and they're like, "What? Shut up!" They don't understand. And even with friends too, and it got to the point where it wasn't until the internet when I really knew that, like, oh, everybody likes Star Wars. And then, of course, those same people who I grew up with, then they became Star Wars fans. You know what I mean? And then I have to pull that hipster hat trick and just be like, oh, Doug, you like Star Wars. I knew Star Wars before you even fucking liked it, dude. And I was able to flex that on a lot of these people because, again, it's without Star Wars, I mean, I don't know if I would be in the film industry, truly, because the idea of telling a story that is so real, at least to me, that is just completely made up. It's science fiction. And when I say real, I don't mean like, in a fucking Joker incel way. It's like, oh, this is a me movie, I'm just saying that, like, real as in, like, something I feel with the characters. I feel the fear of Luke Skywalker when he is dangling on, in the third act of Empire, when he's dangling off that thing in Bespin, and, Vader just straight up tells him, he was just like, you never knew the truth. You never knew the truth. And it was only by fate that we are here together. And the fact that he delivered that line, I am your father, like, is iconic and memey for sure. It's definitely memed, like, for fucking since forever. But it was one of those pivotal moments in cinema history, at least for me, where that was a moment where it was like, no fucking way. The evil lives inside of Luke as well. You know, that passion, the drive to do better, to do great and whatnot, and achieve greatness. And, you know, the resolution in Return of the Jedi in the next film, he brings it back. At the very end, his son brings Vader back away from, you know, what Palpatine promised Vader, everlasting life, when he basically lost everything he loved before he became Vader, you know? And in that process, he definitely lost everything he loved, you know, in Revenge of the Sith and whatnot. So, again, it's like a heartbreaking tragedy that only a good storyteller can really see. And I'm not, I by no stretch of the imagination am I a good storyteller. I am just one. I'm just a storyteller, you know, and I just want to tell the stories that I want to see. And with Star Wars, it is a lot more than just regular ass, like, just run of the mill stories and whatnot, you know. And it's the same for a lot of people, because I read the comic books, I got into the video games, I got into the world. Like, it was everything to me. And even watching the Clone Wars, I watched the Micro 2D series. That was my favorite on Cartoon Network. Dog, I remember they had, like, every single rerun I never missed. I watched every single rerun, and it was as magical as, like, the previous one, and going through it all over again, you know? So I always think that Star Wars definitely has a chance, no matter what. And I know it's hard to think, because it's like, well, dude, there's been nothing but shit after shit after shit. And I get it. Season 3 of Mandalorian was, I don't know what happened. I'll just say that. I don't know what happened. But it wasn't John. It wasn't Johnny Favs, dude. Okay? The guy who made the show. It was not him. There's an existential threat that rhymes with Schmizny. You know? By the way, I don't know how long I'm going to do this episode. It might be just 30 minutes long. I might be gassed out after 30 minutes, but I wanted to come on here to talk about it, because, like, this is something I've been thinking about for the past couple of days, and just reading it on Twitter and Reddit. Jesus Christ. Just can't remember any of these social media names, because I'm just on Threads, dude. Fucking Threads is so fucking good, dude. It's not accessible at all. You know? It's not confusing whatsoever. It's like a never-ending newsfeed of just my friends just telling me they had a salad. It's like Twitter back in 2012, 2011, when everybody just tweeted everything, all their thoughts and whatnot. Digression time. Do you remember Twitter, like, in the early 2010s? I do. That shit was wild. That was a wild place. People would just, like, say the most, like, personal, like, crazy shit, you know, until, like, the idea of just, you know, not fake Twitter, but Twitter alts and shit like that came about. Man, that was crazy. It was a wild time. But anyways, going back to Star Wars, it's one of those stories that is always gonna be universal. Like, as long as you have new characters, it will be evergreen. 1,000%. We will always remember the tale of Luke Skywalker. That's the thing that's so awesome about Star Wars is that like you can introduce a whole slew of new characters for the newer generation that can be great, like Ahsoka, you know? I do think there's hope for that. And I think people should have a little more faith on it just because I think there is a chance that it can turn around. Because at some point, at the end of the day, somebody's gotta understand Star Wars. Some filmmaker out there, somebody's just gonna understand it and go, okay, you know what? This is the story we're gonna tell. We're gonna work with Dave Filoni, the Filoni boy, who made the Clone Wars animated series. I don't know if he made the 2D micro series, and I'm not gonna bother looking it up on the internet because I do not want to edit anything out. Okay, I want this to be raw and real. Except when I do edit, it is because, my camera just decides, hey, I'm just going to stop. I don't know why. If anybody knows Canon EOS Rebel T5i cameras, please let me know how to stop it from just, not, stopping. I looked it up on the internet, and they're like, oh, you just need a better SD card. I'm like, who gives a fuck? My SD card's 128 gigs, and it can record up to 9 hours. Okay? It's been tech time with Adam Chase. Anyways, speaking of tech, fucking Star Wars is like, I don't know. There's always going to be room for new audiences to experience Star Wars the way that I experienced Star Wars, the way that a lot of people has experienced Star Wars. And I feel like, I'm putting a lot of my emotional eggs into the Ahsoka Tano basket, but here's to hoping, I'm excited for it, and I'm excited for people to get to know Ahsoka who hasn't seen the Clone Wars series, or Rebels. And I know there are animated series, and let me tell you something. I love the animated series. I love Clone Wars animated series. I've been watching it for years. Here's the thing, though. I didn't watch every single episode, and I remembered a year ago, 2 years. No, actually, it was a few years ago. Now that I think about it, it was during 2020. It was during the lockdown, and I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna watch the entire Clone Wars and Rebels series because why the fuck not? Spend overspending on Disney Plus anyways for a subscription. Might as well use it. So watch it again, and they're great. They're such a great series, except for a few episodes. If you like a show that has Adventure of the Week kind of shit, sort of like Bad Batch, if any of y'all watch that. There's a lot of episodes where it's just another adventure on going to another planet and solving the, domestic dilemmas that planet is having with the inhabitants and all that stuff, Sometimes they have a thread of the entire season and whatnot, which is awesome. But again, it's like Star Wars is never meant to be perfect, and by no stretch of the imagination are the original trilogy perfect. I never said they are perfect. You know what I mean? The original trilogy for Star Wars, the whole fucking, incest shit between Luke and Leia, in Empire. That was not cool. That was not, it was very uncool. I did not like that. It was cool that they connected with the Force and shit like that, and they see each other and whatnot. But it was fucking that was crazy. That was weird. But that's part of the charm with Star Wars, right? It's the fact that there are things like that in the mistakes that happen that clearly show it's of its time. Back in what was it, 1983 for Empire Strikes Back, I want to say. Fuck. Watch me be super fucking wrong. whatever. It's in the 80s, all right? And because I'm from 1994, I can't remember every single fucking year. I could barely remember names. You know what I mean? I'm also horrible with birthdays. That's why a lot of people be disappointed in me. Except for, like, I know birthdays of people very close to me, but, like, there's some birthdays I just don't remember, and I forget to say happy birthday, and then, I get those same people DMing me and telling me I'm a fucking asshole. So, I do my best. That's all I can do. Just only do my best. So, it's of its time, right? with Empire Strikes Back. And I think it's a great time because it is something of like a stamp in history. And that's why I love Star Wars, because no matter what you do with the story, it's always, if it's good enough to say, and if it aligns with the overall scope of the Star Wars universe, it can work. And it's ripe for the taking. I don't understand why people didn't chase after Heir to the Empire back when the sequel trilogy was happening. I felt like that was a prime thing to do. You can still have your Kylo Rens, you can still have your Reys, you can still have your Finns in character and whatnot, which they definitely robbed, in my opinion. Finn was going to be a rad character. Same with Poe. Same with Poe Dameron. Both of their stories are just fucking like, what the fuck? There could have been a better resolution or a better history of events, But it doesn't matter, right? Because ultimately, Star Wars is always going to be the way it is, with its imperfections and everything, including Season 3, including the Obi-Wan series, which I'm still mad about, because, again, it's the same exact example of there's so much source material between books, comics, all that. Who is there to read this shit and go, oh, let's just follow this story thread. Let's just do this. Let's just do what Filoni is doing with Clone Wars and just continue that. Maybe Heir to the Empire is wrong way to go about it, but something of like a new Thrawn-like character, that can work as long as we fear him, like we did in the books. Because that motherfucker was scary with the stupid pet on like, kind of like Dr. No from James Bond, just you don't see his face, he just like pets a cat and shit. Yeah, I think all those stories are so ripe for the taking that it's so dumb that even with the sequel trilogy, like I remembered watching The Last Jedi and audibly saying "fuck" with almost every single Luke Skywalker scene. So I understand the frustration. Now, does that mean Rian Johnson's a horrible director? Absolutely not. I love Looper. I love the Knives Out trilogy, or Duopolis, soon to be trilogy. I don't know. Who knows? But yeah, I like Rian Johnson as a director and a storyteller. Of course, he's a good storyteller, and he likes to make controversial decisions when it comes to certain characters and whatnot, which I can't hold him at fault for. But do I think that Star Wars was kind of like the wrong way to go about it, especially with a beloved character like Luke? Yeah, I don't think it was a good option. I don't think that was a good decision to make. But again, it doesn't take away the validity and the overall cinematography and the storytelling of Last Jedi, because everything else was great about it, right? And then you got Rise of Skywalker, and Rise of Skywalker was like, hey, yeah, so everything you knew about that last movie, yeah, fuck that. We're just gonna make Snoke just clones of everything. There's gonna be multiple Snokes, Emperor Snokes. So it is what it is. Which, by the way, I didn't put in spoilers at the top of this episode, but I mean, guys, at this point, if you haven't seen Star Wars and you see the title of the episode say Star Wars and you're watching it, I'm assuming you don't mind spoilers or you've seen it already. And I'm just saying information, okay? Saying nothing else but just that, right? So don't get angry with me. But something to do get angry about is definitely Rise of Skywalker. Bringing back Palpatine was single-handedly the craziest, most dumbest idea, and the fact that he was related to, he's the grandfather of Rey, is probably by far the most, at least as a fan, the most infuriating thing. You know? And I don't want to get into the whole Mary Sue argument of it all. Like, she never earned her powers and whatnot, or like earned her way through the Force. I don't know. That's still left to be debated. I think there's a way to tell the story a little better, for sure. But I'm more angry with Finn and Poe Dameron's characters. You know what I mean? You had two fucking rad characters that were set up beautifully in Force Awakens. You know? Just two unlikely friends, getting together and just doing some rambunctiousness through the galaxy, you know, as the Resistance. That would have been fucking sick. And it never happened, you know? And that was the thing after Last Jedi. I was thinking, there's no way they're going to finish this off with, like, the characters that are supposed to, you know, follow through with this entire fucking thing. And Poe Dameron and Finn were just left in the fucking lurches, you know. And we'll see. I know there's going to be another one. I know, you know, Rey's coming back and, Charmin Shinoy, I think, Charmin Obey Shinoy? She's the new director for the new Rey movie. You know, which is cool. I'm excited. I'm very excited for it. It's just, more than Rey, I'm just so bummed out with Finn and Poe Dameron's character. That's not to say that Rey is perfect in the decisions that was made for her character between the trilogy. I also didn't agree with that. I really didn't, you know, especially not knowing who her parents are back in the vision. And if you weren't going to show anything, why have that vision in the first place? Make the vision be something completely different. You know what I mean? You can still have I don't remember my parents, or I don't know who they are and whatnot, but have it in a way that like addresses it briefly in that vision, that same vision, you know? But I'm not trying to retroactively rewrite this shit. You know what I mean? I'm not the expert. All right, I don't know. But what I do know, it's not great what we have right now. It's not fantastic. I mean, did they do their best? I think so. Yeah. I think they were trying to do their best, you know? I mean, Jesus Christ. I mean, for fuck's sake, what can you do when you have a whole entire ass company, you know, that bought the whole entire fucking thing along with Indiana Jones and everything else, which that was, boy, oh boy, you know? Indy wasn't that bad. It wasn't that bad. It was still a fun time. It was still a good time. It's just, you know, if it was supposed to be like a great, I mean, it's the most expensive Indiana Jones movie, I'm sure, and it just didn't quite hit. Like, I mean, whatever. Tangent time. I don't think Indiana Jones, the new fucking, you know, Indiana Jones movie was going to live up to something like fucking Temple of Doom. or Last Crusade or Raiders, the OG. I don't I don't know a world where that was going to live up to that hype. I'm sorry, everybody, but there's just no way that it was going to... Dial of Destiny was just going to be so fucking good as, any of the OGs. Which doesn't mean that it's a horrible movie. It's not a horrible movie. I just, it's just, it's not the best thing I've seen this summer. I'll tell you that. Which is, I don't know. We'll see with Oppenheimer and Barbie, but it's not the best. It's not the best. It's not the best. So it is what it is, but it doesn't matter, right? You can't live up to the OG. You can't just rely on nostalgia, period. It just doesn't work. It doesn't work. And I think that was the overall, idea for the sequel trilogy. It was just like, hey, let's just tell A New Hope and then see where we go from there, And it worked. A little bit of it worked. You know what I mean? A little bit did work. But it just... The ending and then the next one and then the one following after it was like trying to ski barefoot. It's like valiant effort. Amazing. But you just got us all fucked up. And again, I don't fault the directors. Well, Adam, they directed the films. Who are we going to fault it against? The flipping company, dude. The big boss, the Hoss boss, Bobby Iggs. Was Bobby Iggs during that time? I don't know. But that's just kind of the way it is, man. That's a fucking shame, Bob. Shout out to the Judge Gun. But yeah, I just think that there's so much to be said with how Star Wars can really redeem itself in the next coming 3 to 5 years, right? And we'll see with Ahsoka. We'll see with I was gonna say a bunch of other shows, but I think they're canceled. I think Acolyte is still coming around. Dog, Acolyte might be sick. You know what I mean? We're going to go back. I don't know if it's like hundreds of years before Phantom Menace, but it's going to take place during the Old Republic. God, can you imagine getting a Knights of the Old Republic series? I mean, you can literally make it where Coruscant is like Westeros. You know what I mean? If you really wanted, shit. It can really fucking work. And I'm excited. And of course, you have to go to different planets and whatnot. It's still an adventure. But, Knights of the Old Republic is I hold that to a high esteem storytelling next to Heir of the Empire. It's that engaging for an Xbox game that I played years ago, and it took me years to play and beat, way after Knights of the Old Republic 2 came out. And I don't even think I finished Knights of the Old Republic 2, but I was just so engaged with the first Knights of the Old Republic. It was just so fucking good, And I'm playing it again on my Nintendo Switch, and it's just fucking great. Love that shit. So I think, ladies and gentlemen, we'll see with time, but hopefully they get their shit together. Let me know if you think so, because ultimately, I think it's safe to say that every Star Wars fan wants Star Wars to succeed. That's exactly what we wanted in the first 2 seasons of Mandalorian, and that shit fucking slapped. It was amazing. The end of season 2, It's fucking crazy. You know? So I think I have faith. You know? And I did read that Ahsoka might feel like Rebel Season 5, which I don't know. I don't think so. And if it is, there's no way that Dave Filoni, who's creating the show and created Ahsoka along with the entire Clone Wars animated series, there's no world where Dave doesn't at least address like the cliff notes of Ahsoka to the live action show. There's no way. If you want to be an effective storyteller, you're gonna need to lay some groundwork. You know, brief but like some groundwork for sure. Just as like a launching off point, you know. Or maybe they're gonna do the whole flashback, you know, of Ahsoka each episode, right? It's like a little morsel of history up until the final episode of the season. And it's just like, oh, this is who Ahsoka is all about, you know? And if that's the case, you know, I don't know. We'll see. I don't know. I also was very skeptical of Andor. And that shit got me fucked up. That show was rad. Had no business being as good as it did. Truly. Because it's another Star Wars story that, like, I read somewhere it was like Tony Gilroy, who is a phenomenal director, Michael fucking Clayton, y'all. You know what I mean? God damn. What a fucking crazy ass movie. Shout out to Michael Clayton. Great fucking movie. The only George Clooney movie that really matters. You know what I mean? Next to The Descendants. But with Andor, it was his story, but it respected the overall message of what Star Wars was about, which is hope. It's giving these people a chance to redeem themselves and take back what was theirs. And especially with Andor's mom on that planet, I'm forgetting the name of. Doesn't matter. Anyway, so with that planet and that big message when she was projected from that R2 unit, and was just fucking sending the most gladiator-esque fucking speeches I've seen even on television, let alone a streaming platform, right? That was peak storytelling. You know, like what they did with the OG trilogy. And that's what matters. That's what counts. That's the thing that we can gleam off of and say, okay, this can work. It can absolutely work. Of course, you're going to have to get somebody who understands the source material and all that shit. Nobody is ever a genius except for maybe Dave Filoni, who has like thousands of years stored in his skull. You know, I could barely remember fucking friends' birthdays. This guy fucking can define almost every single species of in Star Wars. It's nuts. But that's my point, though, is like if you get enough people who are fans, which I know there's a lot of, you could probably get a filmmaker that can really tell a story, or any storyteller, really, for that matter. I mean, Dave is an animator. You know, he worked on Avatar, The Last Airbender, before Clone Wars. You know? So he knows storytelling. Does he know live action directing? I mean, it wasn't bad with the Jedi episode in Mando season 2 or 1. No, 2. Pretty sure season 2. And that episode fucking slapped, right? So it's one of those things where I think if we play our cards right, we might get some great fucking Star Wars, storytelling, some good storytelling. Not, I mean, that just transcends Star Wars, right? Like Andor did. You don't have to be a Star Wars fan in order to enjoy Andor. You don't even need to understand Star Wars in order to enjoy Andor. I mean, it might be useful, right? Considering, there's some lore in between, like characters and whatnot, and like the Empire itself and the rebels and whatnot. But like, it's kind of in a league of its own, and I think that's what's missing with a lot of these episodes, a lot of just Star Wars content in general, not just episodes, the movies, all that, And I think video games is making a transcendent way of telling their stories, like Fallen Order. Excuse me. Jesus Christ, Adam, you're gonna yawn in the middle of a podcast? Yeah, I'm tired, dum. Sorry. So, Fallen Order was great. I didn't play Jedi Survivor, and I heard that was great. But yeah, I let's just have a little bit more faith in Star Wars. You know what I mean? It's been 40 minutes. I think I hit my point with Star Wars. Okay? There's hope for it. And that's why I'm here to talk about it, So, thanks everybody for listening. Thanks for everybody for watching. I appreciate it. Let me know what your Star Wars history is. I want to know about it. Tell me. So, hopefully I will do another one soon. I'm aiming for tomorrow, but we'll see. I don't know. It depends on how much fucking work I have to get through and how much less sleep I'm going to get because of it. So, yeah. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Bye-bye now.